we hear the kind of the archetypical example of a leader who says, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. That's not good leadership. A good leader says, I love your problems.
Welcome to Let's Design Change, the Blue Mood podcast. We are delighted to have you here. I'm your host, Teresa Niubó. We aim to create a community of change makers that are willing to face transformation from a human-centered approach. Together, we'll explore inspiring stories about leadership, innovation, and how to tackle change from a human-centric perspective. Stay tuned and join us as we explore the power of shaping our world. Let's design change. Yes, welcome, Jeremy. Welcome to Let's Design Change, the Blue Mood podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here with all of us.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
Yeah, I met Jeremy while I was in California, where you were one of my professors at the Stanford University. And, Jeremy, my life totally transformed after my time spent there. So you inspired me to get specialized on design thinking, to put the person at the center. And I'm truly grateful for all the ecosystem of Silicon Valley. So that my life totally transformed after that. And I'm truly happy to have you here with all of us. So
it's my pleasure. I'm delighted.
And not only that, Jeremy, not only you were my professor, but you also encouraged me to start this podcast. You don't know that, but that's the truth.
I don't know that. Tell me how I encourage you to start the podcast.
Well, I'm following all the episodes of your Pip and Pipette podcast that where you interview entrepreneurs and world-class innovators. And not only that one, but also the new one, Beyond the Prompt, which is an outstanding podcast about innovation, about AI in the workplace and how to apply it. So I follow all your episodes and I was thinking, okay, let's do it. So why not?
Amazing. No, I'm delighted. I'm delighted to be a small part of your journey.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really happy to have you here with us. So, Jeremy, just let's jump in. So, could you briefly introduce yourself?
My pleasure. Yeah, I'm Jeremy Utley. I am an adjunct professor at Stanford University and a general partner at Freespin Capital and an AI researcher. And I would say more important than any of that, I'm a front row student in an amazing classroom called Life. And it's a privilege to get to be a student alongside you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And you also are the co-author of Idea Flow, the only business metric that matters, a remarkable book about fostering innovation as a daily practice. I read it, and I also knew that recently you translated it into Spanish. So I also encourage our listeners to find it out in a Spanish version if necessary. So could you share with us your perspective on this and explain the mindset people should adopt regarding innovation in business?
Well, I think the big difference that we saw is that very few people appreciate the volume required to get to really break through ideas.
Yes.
Most people think about ideas and they think they're rare and they can't have a lot of them and they're hard to come by. And the truth is they're plentiful and they can have many and they're easy to come by. And in fact, it's essential to generate lots of ideas. The single greatest variable that impacts the quality of your ideas is actually the quantity of your ideas. So it's literally true. The more ideas you have, the better ideas there are. Not because all of your ideas get better, Not at all, but because it increases your likelihood of having a good idea. Ideas are normally distributed, which, just if you think about like a normal distribution, a small percentage of your ideas are bad, a small percentage of your ideas are good, and most of your ideas are just kind of ordinary. And the best way to get more in the extremes or in the tails of the distribution is to increase the volume underneath the curve, so to speak. So volume and variability are really the two big kind of, you can think about like levers at your disposal as an innovator, as a creator. And how do you have more ideas? How do you have more varied ideas? These are the core questions that I've concerned myself with these last 15 years to help individuals and teams and organizations have more ideas and more varied ideas, and then learn quick and scrappy ways to test and see which of them are any good.
Yeah. And how do you think that organizations can make in order to, if all the organization aim to boost their creative potentials, but how can they integrate this idea flow into their everyday practice?
How to integrate idea flow into everyday practice. I mean, there's a number of things. One thing that I would recommend people to do is keep a bug list. Write down the list of things that bug you. It turns out that's actually a fantastic way of courting the muse. We talk about the muse and having inspiration. Well, one of the best ways that you can court the muse or have, have novel solutions is pay attention to problems. Write down problems that you see and be aware of it. And we hear the kind of the archetypical example of a leader who says, "Don't bring me problems, bring me solutions." That's not good leadership. A good leader says, "I love your problems. Bring me problems," right? And that's a mindset shift. And there's lots of great examples of innovation throughout history where ultimately it came down to a new problem worth solving and someone paying attention to that. So that's one thing. The other very simple tactic, and there are many, but I'll give you one other, is keep a daily practice of generating 10 ideas. We call it in the book, we call it an idea quota. But it's basically where you say every day, I want to come up with 10 ideas. And you can use your bug list as like the problem that then seeds those ideas. But it's about shifting your orientation from, call it a quality orientation, whereas you're normally thinking in terms of good ideas. When you have an idea quota, you're thinking in terms of quantity. I'm looking for 10 ideas. They don't have to be good. They can be 10 bad ideas. But as you start to daily engage this practice, it's just like lifting weights. You're actually rewiring your neural circuitry. And what you're able to do is increase your fluidity and adaptability. When the problem arises, your ability to quickly generate a volume of possibilities. It doesn't feel foreign or unfamiliar. It feels natural, like something you've practiced because you have.
I remember also, Jeremy, while I was there, that one of the exercises that you made us do was just wander around, just walk around and see how other people are facing different challenges that may be happening in the street, how someone is facing the difficulty of whatever situation that you just faced walking around. And from those wandering around, find what solutions and how can you apply it to our day-to-day problems. So I found that exercise totally outstanding.
Yeah, it's called a wonder wander. And what we find is it's really easy actually to get people to taking a step back. How do you think out of the box?
Yeah.
One way you think out of the box is you get out of the box. And where a lot of people get stuck is they're focused on a problem and they're sitting thinking, and they're sitting and they're stuck, and they're focused and they're looking at their screen and they're stuck. And with the wonder wander, what we say is, why not get up and walk around and then have a specific thing you're doing? And what we suggest in the wonder wander is you entertain the possibility of connection between things, right? So if I've got a problem around describing a new solution, right? I want to describe. It's hard for me to figure out how to describe the. Right now, I'm focused on AI, right? So let's use a real example for me. Yeah. And I want to tell people who are interested in design thinking and innovation how they should be using AI. How do I do that? I'm not sure how to do that. Well, I can see a fireplace outside. How would a fire do it? Oh, it just kind of like, well, one thing is a fire it spreads, and you have to spread it to different places, right? So maybe I think about spreading that, right? And I see a scooter. What does a scooter have to do with getting people excited? Oh, like I start on a hill. I actually, my kids always go on a hill to scoot. I see a basketball goal. What does a basketball goal have to do with it? Oh, there's a pass. Like what does it look like to do a pass? Right? All of these things are going to sparking my thinking, which is to say, if I'm sitting here on my screen thinking, how do I get people who know design thinking to want to learn the tools of AI?
Wow.
Man, that's hard. I can sit here, right? Or I can just look up and I think about a fire. How does that do it? And a scooter and a basketball goal. I'm just looking out my windows, right? But if you take a walk, you see an Amazon truck. How would Amazon get someone to try a new thing? You see somebody in Nikes. How would Nike shoes get right? And on and on and on, right? So the point is you can help someone think outside of the box by actually getting outside of their box. And a tool or a tactic like a Wonder Wander is a really simple way to help people do just that.
And as you say in the book, that this is how to exercise our muscle about creating and fostering more and more ideas. So
absolutely,
that's yeah. So and I'm also wondering because you believe that that organizations face with many challenges in maintaining this high idea flow. How can they overcome those obstacles?
Well, it actually, there's organizational stuff at play. There's team stuff at play. Organizationally, there's incentives, there's compensation, there's culture, right? In the team, there's interpersonal dynamics, and then cognitively, we have barriers as well. And I think addressing obstacles at each of those levels is important. And the one obviously that we're most susceptible to, but then also most capable of overcoming is our own cognitive barriers, right? So we're susceptible to, like, there's this cognitive bias called the Einstein effect, which has been demonstrated since the 1940s. Abraham and Edith Lutyens identified this tendency of a human to fixate on a solution, despite the fact that there's a better solution available. They keep thinking about the suboptimal solution. And so we see that, and that's a bias that affects all of us. It's closely related to what Ari Kruglowski, who's a Russian psychologist, what he calls longing for cognitive closure. There's a tendency to want to resolve things as quickly as possible. Satisficing is what Herbert Simon won the Nobel Prize for. All of these kind of cognitive phenomena are related, and they all influence our ability, or rather our inability, to solve problems. We tend to just want the right answer quickly. And if we become aware of that, then we can start to play with it ourselves. And, one of my favorite studies actually was a study by a neuroscientist named Dr. Charles Lim, who studied jazz musicians. Wow. And what he did was he put jazz musicians in an fMRI scanner. And he said, okay, I want you to play known music, just play Bach or play a Beethoven piece, right? Something that where the lines are memorized. And he would, in the fMRI scanner, he would actually scan their brain and see what parts of the brain are lighting up and what parts of the brain are dormant. And then he said, now when you hear the noise, I want you to improvise, do something original. Right. And then he scanned the brain again to see what part of the brains are getting blood flow that weren't before. Whenever someone's being creative, what's turning on? Yeah. And the fascinating thing actually isn't what turned on. I mean, there may be some things that's turned on, but the more important thing, I think, was what turned off.
Ooh, and what was that?
Criticism.
What was it? Criticism. Wow.
Judgment. They basically, these improvisers stop judging. They stop criticizing themselves. And to me, it's very profound, right? To say, okay, can I when I was at Stanford, I got an entire semester's worth of instruction on critical thinking. Did I get any instruction on non-critical thinking? Any?
I
And
find
that
this.
to me, that's something that we can cultivate, right? A simple way to cultivate it. If you go, how can I practice that myself? Or how can I practice it in my team? Here's one very easy thing you can do. I'm going to flip two words. When someone brings a new idea,
Yeah.
instead of thinking, what do I think of it? Ask, what does it make me think of?
Tell us more.
Well, what do I think of it is a critical posture. Do I like it? Do I not? What are the problems? What are the benefits, right? I'm immediately in critical mode. What do I think of it?
Yeah.
Whereas what does it make me think of? I'm in generative mode. I'm not criticizing. Oh, it makes me think of this other thing. And I wonder about this. And could it do this, right? So there are really simple tricks that we can
So,
employ
yeah,
to short circuit our bias towards judgment, criticism, and to unlock new possibilities.
absolutely. And it brings to me the mindset of the diverge approach instead of converging. So
Yes.
it's like opening up in order
Yes.
to really skip from judging and really looking for more and more ideas to be generated. That's fantastic. I really love that example that you have put, that research. And on a personal note, Jeremy, what practices do you follow to keep your own creativity and ideas generation skills sharp?
Well, besides what I've already shared, because everything that I've shared,
Yeah,
I do,
yeah,
right? So the first thing is go back to the start of the conversation if you're a listener and listen to all that again, because that's an answer to this question. And then fast forward to this point in the conversation. And I think, Teresa, what you meant to ask is, what else do you do, right? in which case I would say, besides all the things that I already just said,
absolutely.
one of the things
I
I
was
think is
curious.
very...
Yeah, I was curious to learn from a more personal note. That was my curiosity. That was where my curiosity.
Well, those are deeply personal. I mean, that's not like, those aren't organizational. That's me, right?
Yeah,
I think
really.
one thing that, I was actually thinking about writing a blog post about this. Two of the best ideas I've had in the last year, do you know where they came from?
No idea.
My hot tub.
Hmm?
I have a jacuzzi, a hot tub jacuzzi.
Yes.
And they came to me, my two best ideas while I was sitting in it. Yes.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love it.
For me, one of the things that, a quote that has always stayed with me, we reference it in the book. It's the last chapter of the book, my favorite chapter of the book, chapter 11. And one thing that we reference is Amos Tversky, who was a research partner to Danny Kahneman. And Tversky was asked once, how did you and Danny come up with so many inventive experiments? How'd you do it? Mm-hmm. And this is what he said. He said, the secret to doing good research is to always be underemployed. You waste years when you can't waste hours. Wow. And to me, that's very profound. If you're not wasting time, you're wasting time.
Yeah.
And so having the ability, and why do I reference the hot tub? I reference the hot tub because it's this place that anytime I go there, I say I'm not going to work.
Yeah. You are relaxed.
And yet like yesterday, one of the most important keynote lectures I've ever given, I gave this morning. I had no idea how I wanted to do that keynote yesterday. And it wasn't until I got into the hot tub that I was wearing my headphones. I kept having to text myself. I would say, hey, Siri, text Jeremy Utley. And then I would say my thing, right? And I wrote the entire outline from text messages to self sitting in the hot tub.
I found it so funny. Yeah.
But it's not, but the thing is, anytime I think about going to the hot tub, I feel a little bit guilty. I feel a little bit like this is not the right thing to do. I don't have time to do it today. Many times, not every time, it's not a formula, but many times I do it, I get my best ideas.
Wow,
and so it's like, so all that to say, when you ask me, what do I do personally? There's an element of we have to give ourselves permission to
Mm.
work more broadly than sitting in front of the screen.
Yeah.
We mostly define our work in terms of sitting in front of the screen. And yet, for those of us who are knowledge workers, that's not, sometimes the screen actually hinders our ability to work well.
Yeah.
And if we don't know that, if we don't have examples, when Einstein was stuck on a problem, you know what he would do?
No idea.
Pick up his violin.
Oh.
And he would play the violin.
Wow.
And his son and his wife in their memoirs tell stories of him hearing his violin clatter to the floor and him scrambling to his desk saying, I've got it.
I got
right?
it. Yeah.
And so if you don't know stories like that, then you don't know it's okay. When your body feels like I need a break, it's okay to take a break.
It's okay.
It's actually important to take a break.
Yeah, I really love that you brought this example here, and because it's so relevant that we find more spaces for ourselves in order to get inspired. And that inspiration doesn't come in the office. So sometimes it's just going outside, visiting the market. I remember one of my bosses, which has become my mentor, was an obsessive person about going out, go with the sales people, go out to the market, visit the marketplace in order to get inspiration. So that brings me a lot of that.
It's huge. It's huge. But if you don't know it, you don't do it. Yeah. And actually, the worst thing is if you do know it, but you don't do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Teresa, did you know that I actually speak Spanish?
You do? I don't. I didn't know that. Vamos a hablar español.
Un momento.
Hola, soy Jeremy Utley, profesor adjunto de la Universidad de Stanford. Durante los últimos 14 años, he tenido el increíble privilegio de enseñar a más de 1 millón de estudiantes de innovación en todo el mundo. Mi libro, Idea Flow, me colocó en la lista de los 10 mejores pensadores de 50 para 2023, pero, sinceramente, me siento como si fuera solo un estudiante de primera fila en el aula más genial del mundo. Pasé el año pasado sumergiéndome profundamente en el mundo de la IA generativa, investigando, creando productos y entrevistando a expertos, y me quedé impresionado por las implicaciones para los innovadores y las organizaciones.
How is my Spanish?
It's amazing. It's amazing. So that brings me to the following question that I wanted to speak with you, which was that you also host the podcast Beyond the Prompt, where you explore AI and what's the impact on today's work. So you have just given this demonstration about how AI is impact our world.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I was just about to, tell us more. When I follow your episodes of the podcast Beyond the Prompt, every day it's like, I cannot believe it. I cannot believe what I'm hearing. So could you share which are the top 3 insights from your conversations with your guests? You have just given a demonstration just right now, but can you share us more about this impact of AI?
Yeah, the thing I don't know about top 3 insights from my guests. That's hard, but I'll answer just more broadly. It represents a profound potential, and yet mostly it's unrealized. I think mostly we're hardly scratching the surface, and it's because people don't know how to interact with AI well. They don't know how to be I was joking saying I'm fluent in Spanish. Do you speak AI? Do you think about it like it's a language to acquire and to practice and to develop, and collaborating with AI requires kind of a conversational fluency. And what most people don't realize is, how do I become fluent? We call it, we right now, my research partner and I have been working to train organizations and teams on how do I speak AI? How do I develop the ability to speak the language of AI and incorporate that competency into my innovation efforts?
It's amazing. And I've been hearing your story about the research that you have done about the intersection of artificial intelligence and creativity,
Mm.
and your findings about how teams are using AI and how to enhance these problem solving, ideation, and collaboration processes. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it was actually, it's funny.
Yeah.
I have the HBR magazine right here. This article was written in this magazine last month. But the basic premise is that despite the potential actually to amplify a team's ability to solve problems, yet most of that potential is unrealized. And it's unrealized not because of technological deficiencies, but because of human cognitive bias. And the same cognitive bias we were discussing earlier, the desire to close quickly and be done with the problem, it actually haunts us when we start collaborating with AI too. And what we found is most teams, even if they have access to AI, it actually just helps them get to good enough, mediocre answers more quickly. But it doesn't help them uncover exceptional answers unless they interact with it differently. And so what we realized was the default orientation for many teams was treat AI like an oracle. We ask it a question and it gives us the perfect answer right off the bat, right? Rather than treating AI like a thought partner, treating AI like a collaborator. And the irony is people who treat AI like an oracle, it actually feels like magic. It feels amazing to them, but they don't get as good results. The people who treat AI like a coworker, a collaborator, it doesn't feel so magical. It actually feels more like work, but they get much better results. And so that's really the challenge is how do we help people adjust their expectations of what is collaborating with AI feel like? And if you're prepared for it to feel like work, but really amplifying work and self-scaling work, then it's worthwhile.
And I've also been hearing you about the fix-it framework.
Yes.
That I was hearing you, and I was wondering if you could delve into this concept a bit. I found this framework really exciting to hear. So,
but yeah, I mean, we've said our collaboration with AI is broken. Here's how to fix it, right? So that's where fix it comes from. It's fixing our collaboration with AI. So FIXIT, fix it. F stands for have a focused problem. I stands for ideate individually before you go to AI. X stands for provide the AI context on the problem you're trying to solve. I stands for interact iteratively. So, which is to say, have a conversation, have a back and forth. And then T stands for team evaluation and incubation. So do the evaluation work with a team rather than as an individual. FIXIT. Folks who follow that framework end up delivering better outcomes than teams who just approach AI and say, hey, here's the question, give us the all-knowing answer. Those teams don't do as well.
I love this framework. And where should someone new to AI should start to effectively incorporate these tools into their creative and problem-solving processes?
Well, I think the simplest way to think about it is just almost putting a Post-it note on your screen that says, have you tried ChatGPT? I have that right here. I have that Post-it note on my screen. Have you tried ChatGPT? And just start using it in regular, I have a question comes up. Why not consult ChatGPT? And also I would say simply learn some basic conversational techniques. One simple one, like everyone can do this activity right now. It's based on that. So we wrote a Wall Street Journal article, which is just got published. I just put it right there. You can see it. You can maybe link to it in the show notes. But it's how to have a tough conversation. You should prepare with ChatGPT. And what you can do very simply, I can even, you want me to do a demo right now?
Yes, please.
Okay, so let's see.
I love it.
Let me share my screen.
Now.
Okay, so if I say, for example, like let's start a new conversation. So I might say, hey, I was hoping to get some feedback on an idea that I've got. Would you mind to give me a little bit of feedback, please, if I share it with you? So that I'm just using my voice. Of course, Jeremy, happy to help. What's the idea you've got? I'd like to give my assistant some constructive feedback in a way that I think would improve our collaborative dynamic, but I'm not sure if he'll be open to it or not. So I'm using voice because I find it's way better than, just text, right?
Absolutely.
A constructive dynamic. Okay, so let's see.
Yeah.
So now ChatGPT is kind of given me so this is too much. So I might just pause there and say, could we role play it? Would you mind asking me a couple questions about Jason, and then we could maybe do a one-on-one role play? Ask me enough questions so that you feel like you could create a profile and then believably play him in a role play. So I might have just blown some people's minds as they're like, wait, what?
Yeah, here it is.
So I'll just answer a couple of these questions and we'll kind of do a brief role play. Okay, so let's see. Okay, Jason's been with me about a year and he handles a lot of social media stuff. I think he's had similar roles in many other organizations as well. He's he's introverted for sure, his working personality, and he's very detail oriented. I would say that I haven't seen him do a good job of incorporating my feedback into iterations for whatever reason. And I think he works on his own. He probably needs my input, but I'm very busy. And so I respond kind of infrequently. I've noticed that as it pertains to this question of current challenges, I've noticed that he keeps, when I ask him to write a post, it's not written in my style. And I give him that feedback, and then the next post isn't written in my style, and I feel that's somewhat frustrating. The other thing is he's waiting for my input rather than working on other stuff. So typically we just communicate via WhatsApp. It'd probably be weird to have a phone call, but I think it might be useful. So I'm just giving that. So by the way, look, it's going to create a transcript of everything I just said, right? And then it's right there, right? And so then I give that to ChatGPT. It's updating its memory, right? And then what I can do is I can. So it's suggesting, that's funny. But I'm going to take it to voice. So I'm going to do this. Watch this. Hey, Jason, thanks for meeting with me.
No problem, Jeremy. I'm glad we could find some time to chat. What's up?
I was just wondering if I could talk about our work process and how it's working for you.
Sure, Jeremy. I'm always open to discussing how we can improve things. What specifically do you have in mind?
Cool. Could you perhaps be a little bit more proactive about taking on work when I haven't given you any feedback? I feel like there have been a couple of times where you're just kind of waiting around, and I would love it if you would be a little more proactive.
I understand, Jeremy. I appreciate you bringing this up. Can you give me some examples of tasks you'd like me to focus on when I'm waiting for your feedback?
So I just did that, right? So now what's kind of cool is we now have a transcript of all this stuff, right? So this conversation is transcribed. Then what I can do is just say, for example, to ChatGPT, could you now look at my approach from the perspective of Jason, knowing what you know about him and the psychological profile you've created? Can you give me feedback on my approach and how to better resonate with him and his communication style? So let's see what it says. You were direct and clear. Tone was constructive. Jason asked for specific feedbacks to better resonate, provide specific guidance, acknowledge his strengths, create. Okay, these are all interesting, right? So now what I might say is, if you were acting as Dale Carnegie, the author of How to Win Friends and Influence Others, and you were observing this conversation, what advice would you give me as Dale Carnegie? Begin with praise and honest appreciation. Call attention to mistakes directly. That's interesting. Talk about my own mistakes before criticizing the other person. Wow. Ask questions and say, okay, this is interesting, right? But so you get the idea. It's like, this is a totally different way relative to probably how many people, and now it's giving me a revised approach based on Carnegie.
Absolutely.
Right? It's probably a very different way than most people interact with ChatGPT.
I'm absolutely amazed. Because when you were talking about having conversations, you have just given a demo to all of us about how to interact with ChatGPT in order to have a conversation with him or her. So that's, and not only that, I really like that you also took an example about how to give feedback to an employee or someone that is working with you. That's is something difficult many times. That's a recurrent topic.
That's right. No, and that's the point of this Wall Street Journal article is we no longer have to go into that conversation without any practice. Now we can practice. I could do it again. I could pull up ChatGPT. I mean, I can do it right now, right? Let's see if I share my screen again. Now what I can do is say, here, let's see. You may have to give me permission. Okay, yeah. So, okay, let's try this again. Can we take it to voice again and give me another chance? Absolutely. Okay, great. So I'm just killing that. Hey, Jason, I really appreciate all the hard work you're doing in the post. I know it's got to be super hard to work with me because I dropped the ball a ton. I've got so many things going on and I'm not always responsive. So I wanted to, apologize for that. I'm trying to be better. And I never mind it, by the way, if you bug me, so to speak, and kind of ask me questions again if I failed to respond, because I acknowledge that's an issue. I think one issue which I would love to see you work on is incorporating some of my feedback on past posts into future posts, because I've noticed a little bit of the tendency for the same kinds of mistakes to happen over and over again, using words I wouldn't use, like delve, I think I told you about, for example. And so I would love it if your iterations reflected past feedback. Could you work on that?
Thanks, Jeremy. I really appreciate your understanding and the feedback. I'll definitely make a more conscious effort to incorporate your past feedback into future posts. I'll also be sure to follow up more proactively if I need your...
So how was that? Was that a better opening? I wasn't able to read the script that you had provided me earlier, but I'd be curious to know if you had to contrast that opening with my last one. How was it? So I'm getting ChatGPT to contrast my two approaches. Let's see.
Exactly.
Your opening was significantly better and more aligned with Carnegie's principles. Here's a breakdown of why it worked well. You started with praise. You acknowledge your own shortcomings. You encourage positive communication. Wow. So contrasting it, my new opening framed it, right? This is way, way deeper kind of collaboration with the technology than most people have.
Absolutely. And I like the fact that you were confronting the two replies, the two conversations that you were having, and you were asking to ChatGPT to give feedback to you. So that's amazing.
Well, you know what you can do, Teresa, which is another thing, is you can grab all that text, drop it into a new ChatGPT window and say, would you grade ChatGPT's advice to me on a scale of 1 to 100? Would you grade my ability to implement the advice on a scale of 1, right? So there's just so many layers to what you can do here.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's really mind blowing. I mean, it's, as you said, this is something that we all need to learn, and we need to put these post-its in near us in order to use it even more and learn more about it. But I really love this demo that you just did, improvised demo, that has been really outstanding. So just as the last question for today, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say it's going to work out. I think that, and I need that. I don't need that advice to my younger self. I need it to my current self. There's this, we are constantly concerned. And I think it's probably, it's a blessing that we have a concern for the future. And yet so many times that concern takes us away from the present. And I would wish for myself at an earlier age to be grounded. I'm a Christian by faith. I don't, intend to impose that upon anyone, but I can't, be a lie if I didn't say that I have a deep faith. And I believe that I have a Father in heaven who loves me, who has good plans for me, who will help me, who won't let me be tested beyond my ability. Each of those statements, by the way, are specific scriptures, but those scriptures and truths were not a reality in my life, like an operational reality. Because, if one of my kids went up to the road right up here and started begging, like putting out, like panhandling and asking people who are driving by for quarters, what would that say? That would tell me they don't know their daddy. Why in the world are you asking strangers for quarters, girls? I would say. And what would they say? Well, we didn't know where dinner was going to come from. I go, have you ever had to worry about dinner before? Right? I mean, to use a silly example. I think in the same way that their behavior would indicate they don't really know me, my past self, if I look at my past self's behavior, fears, anxieties, all that, what it indicates is I didn't really know God. And I wish I had come to know him younger, because my life would be much more restful and joyful, like it is now. Thank God.
Beautiful, beautiful closing. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the good question.
It was wonderful hearing your insights, Jeremy, and you truly inspire us. And I'm really grateful to have you in our podcast. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation. You know that I'm really happy about that. And thank you all for joining us today on Let's Design Change, the Blue Mood podcast. I hope that you have enjoyed today's episode, and don't forget to subscribe. And I look forward to having you here next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this transformative journey. If you have enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and share Let's Design Change with fellow changemakers. Are you in the middle of a business transformation? Transforming organizations to grow is our passion. If you would like to explore how we could help you, let's talk. Drop me a line or contact us on LinkedIn and Instagram. You will find the link to our website and social media, as well as those of our guests, at the end of this episode. Keep fostering your leadership, innovating, and igniting change. Let's design change.